Thank you. Thank you, Gergő, for the introduction. As I mentioned, but I will mention again for the camera, I'm really super happy to see so many people here. As Gergő mentioned, I'm Csongor Fabian. I'm the head of user experience at Emarsys. And I'd like to talk about my story, how I became a leader and what I'm doing as a leader. So my story started on a Sunday afternoon when Peter Polgár, my boss, invited me to have a walk. And we sat down in Rákóczi Garden to a bench, which is very close to here. And he said that it's time for me to take over the head of user experience role in Emarsys. I was a bit surprised. I'm not saying that I was super happy, but I was excited. And as Peter was a really good leader, I started to think about if I can make the same, if I can be a good leader as well. So there is one very important thing that I knew, that I care with people. I love to give, and I like to make people's life better. It's a very important thing for me. Also, I think that we as UXers or any experienced specialists are in a very good position in terms of leadership. We know a lot about people. We are empathetic by nature. We learned about people's thinking, feeling, those empathy maps, of course. So we are in a very good position. So let's see how it came out. I have 4 topics for today. One is about stories and gossips. The second one is about feedback. The third one is about the UX team, especially here in Emarsys. And the fourth one is a very interesting one. Do we need to be there on a C level, on a VP level? What is the role of the UXer there? So I hope that at the end of the presentation, you will be able to take some practical advices with you to your workplace and try out some methods. The presentation will really be practical, so I will talk about the problems I faced and the solutions I tried to manage these problems. So the first topic is a very disturbing topic. I think that it's very important. And it's about stories, gossips, and conspiracy theories. Just a couple of weeks ago, it came out that we will, at Emarsys, we will work with a third-party agency on one of our very, very impactful products. This was what we know at that moment, and people started immediately talk about this, like they thought that it's a very bad idea, we will not have influence on the design, this should have happened like 2 months ago. So stories like this emerged. And in the absence of information, you will always have problems with gossip. People will always, every time, will make up stories to fill out the gaps that there are in the information. And the result of this is gap filling, so to say, will be something that is a very bad thing. It can lead to distrust. It can cause many problems. It affects the motivation as well. And it's very hard to solve. Our brain always makes up stories. We hate incomplete things. And that's why if a story seems to be complete, even if it's not true, we will be really happy. Like, aha, I've got it. And we start to talk about this with the others, and the others will have another stories. So the question is, how can we handle this as leaders? I think how I solve this problem, because I also make up stories, I have to admit, of course, but I try to be really conscious about these theories. So I have to say to myself that, Csongor, you are making this up. It's not true. You can't say it for sure. And in terms of my team, I handled this particular problem as I would handle anything else, is that I started to gather information from as many sources as possible, and even if the story was still like filled with gaps, I found the relevant people and I said this to them. We have plans to outsource XY product. The reason is that it takes a lot of development time and we don't have a capacity to do it. There are 3 options in the head right now. I'm making this up, but I think we can work together on the project and the design will stay with us. I'll immediately inform you as soon as I know more. As you see, there are still missing parts, but it's like we admit that there are missing parts. And regarding to this, as you see, there is an I don't know part of the story. And you always have to admit that you don't know something. It's also very important to admit. In every other case as well, like this is one particular example, but you don't know everything for sure. That's really about stories, and the next thing is something that is really important in our culture at Emarsys. We always give feedback. Every time we give feedback to each other. Feedback is basically something that we do all day, not all day, but very often, and it can be a positive or negative. It can be something really important or just a small thing. We always try to give feedback. And the elements of feedback, you might know already, looks like this. So feedbacks are based on facts. So there is a fact that you observed, a feeling or emotion that is connected to it, a reason why you feel that feeling, and the proposal, which is absolutely optional. So you don't have to propose anything, but if you propose, then you should have something meaningful. So we always give feedback to each other, and I think that 2 weeks ago we had a meeting, and I have a colleague, let's call her Amy, and I had to give her feedback after the meeting, right after the meeting, which looked like this. Hi, Amy, can I give you a feedback about the meeting? The answer was yes, of course. When you didn't let people finish their questions during the meeting, I felt bad. I felt that you rushed to answer all the questions because we were short on time. Next time, I suggest that instead of interrupting people, you should rather answer fewer questions and let people ask questions later as well. It's basically a very easy thing to give feedback. We are afraid of it because we feel that maybe we are not right, or maybe the other party will be disturbed because of the feedback, but it's not true. And one very important thing in terms of feedback is that the goal of the feedback is to inspire people to change and also develop themselves. Like in this case, for example, on our next meeting, I saw that Amy behaved very differently. Like that was a really interesting reassurance that it works. Also, so when to give feedback? That's a good question. Like if you have the opportunity, you should give feedback like immediately. Like in this case, I gave a feedback to Amy right after the meeting, because maybe feelings just fade away a bit, and that will be a problem. You will forget it, or you will say that, oh, it's not that important. It's important. And I think that for example, this is a so-called negative feedback. It's not negative, but it's a negative feedback, but we definitely shouldn't forget the positive ones. So I'd like to talk a bit about the Kudos factor. Kudos is also very important in Emarsys. Like this is also a cultural thing. We are really lucky to have such a culture at Emarsys. And last week we had a UX overview. So a UX overview is for showcasing the things that we did in the last week as the UX team. It's an important event, and so many great things happen in a week. Like wonderful new interactions emerged. A lot of very interesting research insights were written down, and I really felt grateful. And I thought that it's very important to like say this gratefulness and communicate it to the team. And yeah, it is. It's very motivational. And really, it's like feedback is not hard to do. Kudos is even more easier. And another thing here is that you know, on a C level, on a management level, a lot of feedback comes to you if you are the leader. For example, like really 2 days ago, the VP of Customer Success at Emarsys just said to me that, "Ooh, look, Csongor, that's a really great design we have in Emarsys." And yeah, I have to transfer that thing. It's basically something that the team that the team is responsible for, so it belongs to them as well. Also, there are many different ways to give feedback or kudos. And for example, in case of Emarsys, of course we use Slack. I mean, not of course, but we use Slack. And we give feedback over Slack a lot. Balint, who sits next to me, is very good in giving feedback, in giving positive feedback. And it really helps, it motivates people. Yeah, I talked about UXers a bit about this UX overview thing, but let me talk a bit about the team itself. So, like, I think that 2 months ago, or in the last 2 months, not 2 months ago, in the last 2 months of 2018, there was a huge reorganization in the whole R&D organization, which means that all the teams were like mixed up. Everything was like very chaotic. And my job was to lead the whole team, the 17 UXers, through this process. And the structure currently looks like this. So we are basically organized around different user journeys or 1 or 2 journeys. And in this case, we call these things areas. And in every area, there are development teams, there are product people, and there are UX people, of course. And we went through this whole reorganization journey with the team together. And it was a really interesting experience. It was like a very good opportunity for me to build trust as a new leader. And how it really looks like is that, as you see in all the area UX teams, there is a UX team lead who is responsible for 2 to 3 people in the same team. And all the UX team leads, currently we have 5 UX teams in different areas, and all the UX team leads and me form a UX board called thing. And in terms of UX board, we sit down every time, we make decisions, we try to align with the company strategy, we try to find the connection between that strategy and the UX strategy. These are very important decisions that we have to make. Besides the UX team leads and the head of UX, there is also the UX research lead. The UX research lead's role is to develop professionally all the researchers in the company. And I'm just saying now that the 6th person is missing. If you are interested, we miss a UX design lead. So this is how the UX board looks like or will look like. So this is one meeting that we have together with the team. It's a very important opportunity to give feedback, also a very important opportunity to ask help from the others. And in terms of one-on-one meetings or direct interactions, you know, I knew about one-on-ones already. Like, it was not new. The idea was not new for me. I already tried it. I already did some one-on-ones, but it has a really significant impact on our communication. But what is important about one-on-ones, we have one-on-ones with each UX team leads and the UX research lead on a weekly basis. But what is important here, that one-on-ones are an opportunity for them, not for you, so that they can say their problems, their struggles, their insecurities. Like, it's very important meeting for them. And for me, like Csongor, I'm a very talkative person. So for me, to remain silent is like oh no, shit, I can't really make it. But you have to make it, because the things that come out from a one-on-one is very important from development perspective and from like the perspective of your souls as well. So one important piece here was remaining silent. And I like to talk a bit about why we should remain silent. There are 3 stages of listening. Sorry for, this is my handwriting, you know. Sorry for that. It was like, yeah, that's it. I can read it at least. So there are 3 stages in listening. The first stage is basically about you start to concentrate, you start to listen to the other party. The second stage already, your brain starts to process information, and you are not listening anymore. Like you are not aware anymore. And the third stage is like your brain starts to create answers to the things that you heard, and really focuses around, now when can I say my beautiful idea to this guy? I really want to say it is beautiful, and you are absolutely not aware of what the other party is saying. And there are many interesting articles about how to listen on the internet and how actively listen and things like this. Those are very important and I think very, very good for learning how to listen. I used a really, really easy approach. Like I'm trying to consciously concentrate on not reaching the third stage. And if I reach it, I simply try to refocus myself. It's easy to see if you are in the reaction phase, but it's very hard to refocus to the listening stage. Because of this, I started to give up like taking notes and doing things like what can just move my concentration to another point. Another interesting option is that I think that Gergely just said that he tried it, is to, in the beginning of that half an hour one-on-one, you have to shut up for 10 minutes, like really shut up. You just sit down and don't say a word. And I know that it's like very inconvenient. Maybe some of you already tried it during user interviews as well. So it's very inconvenient. But the other party will start to speak. And without you trying to influence what he says, it will be much easier to get very valuable information. One more thing to one-on-ones, and these all are like things I learned during my leadership part. One more thing is that you are not there to give advices, because there are really, so the problem is very well known for the other party. You don't have to solve it, because they will solve it. You can like ask questions. It's a very similar to coaching technique. You can ask questions, or you can like bring up stories from your past that are similar to what you just heard. And the last thing here is that each and every time after a one-on-one, I always ask, what can I help for you to reach your goals, or what can I do for you to help in what you are struggling with. And I started to like shutting up my mouth. Like really, it's a good thing. So related to team, there is another idea here, which is about leading alone, which is it doesn't happen. You are not alone. You have a team, and your team will always help you. Like in terms of that company reorganization, I had to. We had 17 UXers. I thought I have to find out who will go where, and because I am the leader, I have to find it out. And it came out because I was a bit struggling with it. So I sent out a card sorting exercise to everyone in the team, and they created their own versions of a structure. And at the end, they sent me their ideas. I merged it with my ideas, and I think that the result is so much better than it could have been if I only like find out because I'm very clever. it was a very, very, very good thing. Also, in these cases, it's like, I think it's true for almost everyone that if you are not doing things alone, then the credit is not only yours either. The credit goes to the team as well. On the other hand, of course, you are responsible for your decisions on a management level, but that's why you have a team, and you can trust your team because they are working with you. You hired them. It's not an accident that they are working with you. So trust is another important question. We can use trust and fill a whole 2-hour presentation talking just about trust and trust and trust. Here I have a very good book, Brené Brown's Dare to Lead book. You can check it in the break. And that is part of it is only about trust. Basically, we are okay with the team. Everything is fine. We are very happy. Everything is so funny. The next question is, what should I do with the upper level management in this case? I truly think that UX leaders must be there in the upper level management. You are basically the voice of your team. If you are not there, your team will silent in terms of their level. Also, you are the advocate of the user. And believe it or not, it happens quite often that the user is not in focus on management meetings if you are not there. Also, we talked about the stories. Really huge part of these stories are created in the management. And these stories have to be transferred to your team as well. And another very important thing here is that if you are there, you can write the stories, not just listen to them, not just find out that, oof, that was not a good decision. If you are there, you have an influence to end up with a great decision. So another very important thing is, I said already a lot of very important things. You can check back the video later. You as a UXer have a very different mindset, usually. You know design thinking techniques. You know different techniques that is not known for the rest of the management. Your perspective or perspective is something that helps us to lead the company and the product towards a more user-centered, design-infused future in which all have faith. That is very important. That's why you have to be there. So an interesting thing here, again, is that I couldn't have been able to make this presentation without my team either. So some of you are here. Thank you very much for being in my team. Sorry, really. So without you guys, I basically can't make anything. Thanks for being with me, really. To this, I think I already mentioned that we miss some people from the UX team. One is the UX design lead. We are 9 designers at the moment, and it would be really great to have someone who can help them develop. And also, we have an open position in Vienna, a UX designer position. If you want to move to Vienna, here is the opportunity. So I really want to thank you, all of you, for your attention now. You can find me on any of these contact opportunities. And as I mentioned, there are 2 books I would really recommend to you. One is Brené Brown's Dare to Lead, and the other is quite a new one, which is The Making of a Manager by Julie Zhuo. It's also a great book. It's much more practical. Brené's book is much more not theoretical because it contains a lot of practical things, but I really recommend to read this. Thank you very much for your attention.
Any questions?
Yeah, for me, Csongor.
Hi, hello.
What is your biggest challenge as a leader? Because we learned a lot
Mhm.
But I saw that C-level and executive
Mhm.
you are in. And I'm just wondering that what is the biggest challenge in this four, I don't know, topics that you mentioned as a leader?
So the question was, what is the biggest challenge for me in these four things at the moment as a leader? I think that my biggest challenge, I have two biggest challenges, just to say, and both of them are very interesting. One is that how the people in my team can develop, what are the points that are needed for them to find out how to move to a next level. We just created a seemingly good competency map or competency framework, which seems to be work, but we are just piloting it. The another one is about basically teaching or spreading the UX knowledge in the management. I was a bit surprised how low it is, but I think it's so actually now I know that it's not a surprise. So yeah, I think that's the two biggest challenges. More questions? You can ask questions later. Yes?
Csongor, how often do you do these one-on-one meetings with your team?
So the question was how often I do these one-on-one meetings. Weekly once, for half an hour, usually. Yeah, that's the answer. We have time for one more question.
Yes, you started with this gossip topic, and do you think it's intrinsic for every organization to have this kind of culture that everyone knows information from gossips, or can the C-level management go forward and kind of be open, more open? It's just a theoretical question maybe, that why is this with every company, that there are decisions made somewhere, and even if they could be communicated openly, the information, the flow of the information delays. What is your thought on that?
Great question. I think that if I summarize it, then the question is why is gossips and things like this such a big problem in different organizations? I think that it comes to the I don't know question. So I think that people really often don't like to say I don't know, so they rather made up something or don't say anything. And this is the confusing part. This is where the stories are broken, I think. Okay, thank you very much.